So you want to come to the United States? No. Well, let's say hypothetically you did. What would you need to enter? Well, what you need to do depends on two things. What do you want to do here, and what country are you a citizen of? Let's just say you want to visit to check out all the cool sights. Are you from Canada? Congrats, you are the only foreigners that can enter the US without any visa. Are you from a lime green, vomit green country such as England, Australia, or Japan? Well, you qualify for the Visa Waiver Program, where you need to apply through ESTA, or Electronic System for Travel Authority, which is processed within 72 hours.
Why is Taiwan a different color than mainland China?
Not getting into it. Can't hear you. Any other country, you have to apply for a B2 visa. What does the B2 stand for? Travel, of course. Wait, no. Its name comes from the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA, but more on that later. To get considered for a B2 visa, you need to file a DS-160 form and then schedule an interview in either your country's US embassy, which is like a main library branch, or consulate, which is like a subsidiary library branch, but not a consulate agency, which is like a little library that only contains Guy Fieri recipe books and a copy of Heated Rivalry. If it gets approved, you then have permission to enter the United States. Congratulations, you can now eat at a Waffle House. That's the visiting for pleasure visa. What are the other types? There are two main categories of visas, immigration and non-immigration. When a non-American receives an immigration visa, they obtain permanent residence in the United States, aka green card. After 5 years, or 3 years if you're married to a US citizen, the green card holder can apply to become a citizen. With a non-immigration visa, the US government expects that the visa holder will return to their foreign residence at the end of their visa. However, a designation exists that blends the two categories, called dual intent. Dual intent visas are technically non-immigration visas, but the US government allows for the visa holder to apply for permanent residence while in the United States. These are the K-1, the 90-day fiancé visa, and K-3 for spouses of US citizens, and the H-1B and L visas for skilled workers, as well as spouses and children for all of the above. Visas can then be broken down by type. The types are tourism visas, work visas, study visas, government or international organization representative visas, family visas, crime victim visas, and special visas. This is the full list of visas offered by the United States. Okay, so what was that B2 means visiting for pleasure thing? Being a software engineer, I can be a stickler about how people name things. Well-named things are good, poorly named things are bad. Well, there's not really any reason why visas need to be any different, but they are kind of nonsensically named. The names for a large chunk of visas are derived from the specific text that they're provisioned in from the Immigration and Nationality Act. The B2 visa, for example, derives its name from Section 101, subsection A, paragraph 15, subparagraph B, clause 2. Clause 1 of that same subparagraph is the visa for visitors for business, thus B1. Why they couldn't name those two visas V for visitor and then B for business or P for pleasure, we'll never know. And it's not like they needed to follow this weird naming convention anyway. There are a few visas named NATO, and wow, que sorpresa. Someone can actually tell by reading the visa symbol that these relate to NATO professionals. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But there's also a bad version of this with the TN and TD visas for NAFTA professionals. The T apparently stands for treaty. Why couldn't they just call it NAFTA? From here on out, all visas that I think are poorly named are going to get the fart noise of disapproval. When doing research into visas, I came across a type of visa that seemed to be for cultural exchange students, the Q1 visa. The official description for the visa is for people who are a participant in international cultural exchange program, but some more research reveals that it's a work-based visa and requires an employer petition. The employer can employ the visa holder while the visa holder shares aspects of their culture as part of their visit. Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, it turns out that as Disney was planning Epcot and its World Showcase in the 70s, it wanted cultural ambassadors from its showcase countries to actually be from the countries they were representing. Makes sense. So, Disney executives partnered with immigration lawyers and lawmakers in both Florida and California to push for a specific type of visa in which Disney could hire international workers, pay them around minimum wage, and also avoid having to pay FICA taxes, and it worked. Ira Kurzban, one of the lawyers Disney worked with in developing the visa, dubbed the Q1 visa the Disney visa. In 2010, about 69% of all Q1 visa holders were employed at Disney World, and Disney saves about $19 million a year from paying lower wages and taxes. Man, I'm glad big business doesn't have a large influence in US politics. Another interesting thing of note when looking at the list of visas is seeing the different country-specific visas there are and the reasoning behind them. As mentioned, we have the really poorly named TN and TD visas for NAFTA members, Canada and Mexico, but there's also a couple hard-to-guess countries that have specific visas. There's the H-1B one, which is the H-1B equivalent for, you'll never guess, Chile and Singapore through negotiated trade deals. E-1 and E-2, which stand for Treaty Trader and Treaty Investor, because nothing makes sense. The treaty in these visas is different than the treaty in the TN and TD visas. The treaty in this case refers to 80-plus countries that have a reciprocal agreement with the United States. Funnily, Yugoslavia is still listed. The E3, E3D, and E3R visas are also H-1B equivalents for Australian skilled professionals and their dependents. This visa is often perceived as having been a thank you to Australia for its military support in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Who knows why it's called E3 and not H-1B something. There's the AM1, 2, and 3 immigrant visas for Ameri Asians and their dependents born in Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Thailand to an American father. Feels like we have a sense of where this one comes from. S1, 2, and 3, and SQ1, 2, and 3 for Iraqis and Afghanis who were translators or worked on behalf of the US government government. The SF, SG, and SH visas all relate to former employees of the Panama Canal Company or Canal Zone government members. And if your thought was, wait, the Panama Canal? Yeah, mine too. But apparently 6 people obtained immigrant visas through these options between 2020 and 2024, so that's pretty cool. By far the biggest visa stamp, the literal physical permission a visa holder shows a customs officer that they may enter the country, is a combined B1, B2 visa. That's right, even if common sense says that the most applied for visa would be a regular tourist visa, B2, the US Department of State just gives most people a combined visa stamp for some apparent reason. By a gigantic margin, the B visas are the most issued, with around 53 million from 2016 to 2024. In fact, the top 10 most common visa types issued between 2016 and 2024 are all non-immigrant visas, and the first immigrant visa to appear on the list is the IR5 visa for parents of US citizens. And then the next highest immigrant visa is the IR1 for spouses of US citizens. On the other side, there are 14 visas that were not issued a single time between 2016 and 2024. S5 and S6 for informants of criminal or terrorist organizations, T1 or victims of trafficking, SL1 or juvenile dependents, SH1, one of the 3 Panama Canal Zone visas, and the D3 visa for lightering, which apparently is the process for transferring cargo from one ship to another, and a slew of random investor visas. Also, I think in an attempt to continue to annoy me, the US government lists the number of H1C visas for shortage area nurses in its reports, which is baffling because the H1C visa expired in 2009. Of all my what's the reasoning behind this questions, the answer is probably no one knows. I can't imagine the US government really cares about scalability. Like, they only have 5 more non-immigrant visas until they run out of letters in the alphabet, and then what? Honestly, if I put my conspiracy hat on, I'm gonna say there's something fishy going on here. Maybe the lawyer lobby, who would benefit from complicated visa processes. For example, there's a category of non-immigration visas known as quasi-dual intent, such as the O1 visa for people with extraordinary ability in athletics, art, or science, where the government doesn't explicitly say it's dual intent, but there are legal loopholes someone can jump through to get an immigration visa. But I don't really want to talk about it because different law groups have different opinions on what visas fall under this category, and it's not like it needs to be this way. Canada's visas make a lot of sense, actually. V1 is the visitor visa, S1 is the student visa, W1 is the work visa, and VH1 is the music visa. Haha, no, just kidding, it's the, oh no, visitor in transit visa? Why not make it VT1? Oh well, you almost did it, Canada. 3rd time in the same year, too. If any botanists or Canadians want to talk crap about me, go to my subreddit where we can talk about stuff and you guys can criticize me.